Welcome back to Dirty, Sexy, Funny. I'm Jenny McCarthy. In studio with Lynn Koplitz.
Hello.
Hello. I thought for sure David would have had like some type of circumcision cut song.
I did.
Like cut it out.
Don't slice this. Don't slice it.
I don't know if there is a circumcision song.
Don't touch this would have been good.
Well, okay. Well, we went into break with "You Can't Touch This."
You can't touch this.
I'm so excited right now because I'm always wondering what you guys think, especially about this topic. Because it's like, it's hit or miss. It's like a lot of people are kind of agreeing with the mom. A lot of people are agreeing with the husband. So let us know your opinion. Here's a story. Arrest ordered for woman who fled with son over circumcision. A judge issued an arrest order for a Florida woman who fled with her son to prevent his circumcision and ignored a demand to appear in court. 888-94 stars. The circuit court judge signed the order in a 7-minute hearing 3 days after finding Heather Hironimus in contempt and warning that she would face imprisonment unless she reported to court with the child. Her attorney, Thomas Hunker, said his client is staying with her 4-year-old son in a shelter for domestic violence victims because the boy is scared to death of undergoing the surgery. Hironimus and the boy's father, Dennis Neves, whatever his fucking name is, were never married, but share custody of their child. In a parenting agreement filed in the court, the two agreed to the boy's circumcision. But the mom later changed her mind, leading to a long court battle. Circuit judges have sided with the father, but potential surgeons have backed out after refusing to get the mother's consent or becoming the target of anti-circumcision protesters who side with her. Although circumcision rates have fallen in the U.S., a majority of boys still undergo the procedure to remove their foreskin. Meantime, a movement opposing circumcision has developed, and the case has become a rallying cry for so-called an activist who derided the surgery as barbaric. Now, I remember it. I think every new mom goes through that, like, should I, of course, or should I not circumcised? During my adolescence, I basically only saw circumcised penises. So my baby daddy had a circumcised penis. So I just decided that, okay, I don't want him to feel different in the locker room.
Really? See, I love an uncircumcised penis.
Cut to now. And later on in life, in my 30s, I saw some of those. And I like it.
I like it. It's like unwrapping a present. You don't know what you're going to get.
And it's much more sensitive. Like when you pull it, because like the guys that don't have it circumcised, guys that do have it circumcised, you lose its sensitivity. But when it's wrapped up in that little like blanket and you pull it back, it's like
the minute you pull it back, they're like, oh, I love it.
See, I do too. Now, if I had Evan now, I for sure wouldn't circumcise him. But isn't that funny that I did before? So coming to this, looking at this case.
It's weird that it's the dad. Usually the dads are the ones that say leave it alone and the moms are the ones.
Well, the dad usually wants the son to match him.
Oh, that makes sense.
That's what usually happens. So that's where...
What is it, for Christmas pictures?
So do you think the mom should go along, or does she have the right to appeal?
Here's what I think. I think if he was still a baby, the mom would she should take the court order and do what she said she would do. But now he's 4 and he's terrified. And I think fucking knock it off. There's no reason to do it. We don't have to do it now. And the kid's 4. You're going to do more damage to his brains.
And just to continue with the story, the dad is saying that the son has phimosis, if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, which prevents retraction of the foreskin. So he says he needs to have this done. It's a medical, not emergency, but he's saying it has to be done because he's like peeing down his leg. But there's been no diagnosis to this boy. I think that she has the right to appeal it. If she changed her mind, everybody has the right to change their mind. It's a little bit scary for me to think a court order is making her having to go in to do something. That scares me. But she does have a contract, so to speak. There is a contract. But I wonder why she didn't appeal it. sooner? And why did she wait until the kid is 4? I mean, that's traumatic.
And why is she in an abuse shelter right now?
Because she would be arrested.
Oh, I got it. So that's the only place where she is safe. But here's my other question: is this an actual real thing? The diagnosis, like the kid,
that is a real medical problem, but the child has not been officially diagnosed with it. The dad is saying he has it, but
so
the child,
father Google doctored it,
WebMD,
and WebMD'd and decided, and the kid is probably peeing down his leg because he's terrified at having his dick cut.
I mean, the thing is that I think that they should do is get a guardian, one that they both agree upon, to take the child to a doctor that they both don't know.
I love that.
And see if the child has it, and then go from there.
A mediator.
Yes. We have somebody on the line, right? Line 10, Executive Director of Intact America, lawyer of one of the leading bioethics about circumcision. Hello.
Hi, Jenny. Thank you so much for having me on the line.
I'm so grateful that you called in, Georgianne. What is your opinion? I'm sure you're up to date with this case.
Well, you just covered a lot of really great points. The two of you are talking about this. Let me just say first, you mentioned the group of people. There are many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of Americans who are opposed to the forced genital cutting of children, and we call ourselves Intactivists. And my organization is Intact America. You can find it on Facebook and also on the web. You have really covered the case and the points really well. I want to point out first, because it's one of the last things you talked about, phimosis is a fake condition in a child. It's totally normal for a boy's foreskin to be adhering to the head of his penis until he's sometimes even late adolescence. So the diagnosis of phimosis in a child is always fraudulent. Baby boys don't have phimosis. That's the way it's supposed to be. So that we can dispense.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that we can dispense with right away. The other thing, somebody made a point about Chase, the little boy's age, that he's 4 and he's terrified. Babies are terrified too. All you have to do is look at a video of a circumcision or see the reaction of a child following his circumcision, and there's no doubt that babies are traumatized and terrified of having their genitals sawed at without any painkiller usually, and even if there is some kind of local painkiller, it wears off and the child has to live with that pain while the circumcision heals. We think Heather is doing the right thing by her child. You mentioned a contract. You're right, except that a child is not a piece of property. Your parenting agreements should be in the best interest of the child. This is not a separation agreement where Aunt Mary's antique upholstered chair goes to me and the dining room table goes to my ex.
Well, that's interesting because
this is a child. And Heather, when she signed that agreement, believed that circumcision was sort of a no-brainer, as a lot of people do. You yourself have referenced that yourself, And then she started to learn more about it and thought, well, wow, I didn't know these things about circumcision. I would never do that to my son. I think the reason she didn't pursue it in court earlier is because the father of the kid seemed to have pretty much forgotten about it too. It wasn't necessary. The kid was fine. Everybody was happy. And then all of a sudden, the father decided that he wanted this done, and that's when she realized.
Don't you think this is? I do think it's weird that it's a criminal matter now and not just a civil matter. It's odd
so
to
weird.
me that I can understand why the courts are involved, but I don't like that the courts are involved.
You are totally right. I mean, the issue is they're jailing her actually, because the judge has said she'll sit in jail. He wants her to turn the kid over to the father. But he also says she'll sit in jail until she signs a consent. Now, if you know anything, which you do, about medicine and about ethics, you can't force somebody to sign a consent. The meaning of consent is that it's voluntary. So the idea that they would force
that's illegal.
It's way illegal, and it's crazy, and that's why we believe that public opinion on this is so important. This is an absolute abuse of the court system.
Well,
it's a terrible potential abuse of a perfectly normal, perfectly healthy child whose mother is trying to protect him.
Georgianne, thank you so much. It was very, very well said. You keep going, girl. We're going to get a different opinion from Dr. Is it Aluka? Line 11, I think. Doctor, hello.
Hello.
How do you pronounce your name, sir? Doctor?
Well, you got it.
Oh, my God, I did it right. I pronounced everyone's name wrong except for yours. Okay, so you heard our last conversation. Where do you stand on this?
I do think there's two different issues here. One, for any medical issue involving a child where the parents are not raising the child in the same home and have a disagreement with regard to their opinion of what's best for the child, if it is something that's medically urgent, depending upon the state you live in, there's a straightforward legal plan as to how that decision gets made. So say one parent is against blood transfusion, the other isn't, and they're divorced and the child needs a blood transfusion. Depending upon the state you live in, there's ways that somebody in the state makes a decision for the family and the child based on the child's best interest. This is not that extreme, but the issue so there's a way to solve that question. The issue that your last caller raises, we do circumcisions on adults with phimosis all the time, as well with kids.
So it's not a fake disorder, as she implied?
And so an adult, someone who comes in who's sexually active and tells you, I can't retract the foreskin. It bleeds or it breaks when I try and do that. It helps. It gets in the way of me getting erections because it's a fixed point there that won't move. It's barred down or I can't pee out of it. That guy's desperate to get a circumcision. Now, the other piece that's important is I must have done that operation thousands of times, and the only question everybody asks me beforehand is, Doc, is it going to feel the same afterwards? Because we all have the same concerns. And every one of those guys afterwards comes back. He's like, thank you so much for talking me through this. I feel so much better because it doesn't hurt me anymore, and I can't have sex. And yes, I remember what it was like to have sex 2 years ago when I didn't have this problem, and it feels fine. I've got no problems. Now, kids, it's a different story because, generally, depending upon their age, they're not yet sexually active, many of them. But some of them will come in and the thing is infected, the thing is red, it's obvious that something has to get done about it, and we do that. And they get anesthesia, they feel comfortable afterwards. It's no different than doing any other operation on a child except for the fact that it involves their penis, so everybody gets a little bit uptight. But it's not something, it's a wholly different question when it's medically necessary from the question that
I agree.
Right,
exactly.
Should we be doing this to everybody is a different question, and I don't want to weigh in on that.
And that makes a lot of sense. I get that. Is it medically? That's why I said there needs to be a guardian to see if there is a specific problem.
I think that's a great idea. Get somebody to do an independent examination of it. If he doesn't have the problem, this discussion, it's not fair to force him to do something that he doesn't want to do, obviously, and one of his parents doesn't want to do and isn't medically necessary. You're 1,000% right. Great
point, Doctor. Okay, thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Line 12, we've got a lawyer, don't we?
Oh, this
An attorney.
Is interesting.
Hi, who's calling? Is it Shelley? On line 12. Hello? Hello?
Hello. Are you talking to me, but I'm not Shelley and I'm not a lawyer.
Hold on one second. Is it line 12?
You know what? I pulled up line 10.
Line 10. Hold on, sweetie.
So the Cheryl's on line 10. I'm sorry.
God, David.
Would you like to be a lawyer?
I'm not sure if
Michelle left and David has gone to hell in a handbasket.
Okay, so we have which line? Whatever line.
Line 10, Cheryl is there.
Hello?
Hi, good morning, Jenny. This is Cheryl Steiden from Saucony and Chaffetz. How are you?
Good. I'm so happy. We've got about 5 minutes, and I want you to help us, talk legally on this matter. First of all, let me give you the floor right now and what your opinion is.
Sure, absolutely, and thank you for hearing from me. This is an interesting case because while the media is certainly making the issue as to whether there should or shouldn't be a circumcision for this little boy, I think that what we're losing perspective on is that several years ago, these parties entered into a parenting agreement whereby they agreed that their child would be circumcised. And it's certainly not for us to interfere with what the decision of the parents was. That decision was agreed to about at the time that the child was about a year old. Now, here we are several years later, and the mother has had a change of heart. So simply what the judge has done in Florida is enforce the agreement that this mother has entered into. And Jenny, there's a very specific provision in the agreement about the circumcision, which I will just say is not something that we traditionally see in every agreement that we enter into with regard to parenting issues. So this mother agreed to this situation, and now the question is, why is she all of a sudden having a change of heart?
And does she have the right to appeal?
Well, I do believe she does have the right to appeal, and I believe she exhausted that remedy from what I understand in speaking with some Florida attorneys. And unfortunately, or fortunately, the appellate court said, no, we're going to enforce the agreement. You know, and this judge took the agreement very seriously, as he should, because that is what makes our society and our family law function. If people enter into agreements, we need to take them very seriously. Now, the question that needs to be raised is there a change of circumstance? Is there a reason for us to say, well, here we are 3 years after you entered into that agreement, and maybe, for example, and I would defer to the doctors on this, maybe the child could have gone under local anesthesia at the age of 1 year, but now that the child's 4 years old, we're not going to put the child on the table and, you know, perform a circumcision under local anesthesia. So if I was her attorney, I might be taking an approach that addressed this change of circumstance, and from what I understand from just reading some of the orders, and of course I'm not a Florida attorney, but just looking at what I can find, the father waited a significant amount of time before making an issue. And did he sit on his rights? You know, so when we talk about, you know, looking at a guardian, I think that's a great question. I do believe the mother seemed to want to have some sort of mental health professional involved because this child, understandably, is scared now.
Right.
Scared. But the issue we have to look at is this is an agreement. The mother obviously, you know, knew that this was an issue. She agreed to it at the time. What has changed since that time?
All great points. It is a court order, so I understand why this is happening, and I feel like, I don't know, just for the sake of the child, I hope they do the right thing.
I think the change of circumstance is a wonderful point.
I do too. We have to go, but Cheryl, thank you so much for your legal point of view, and I hope you can call in again when we have trouble with understanding something.
Absolutely.
When I accidentally kill a man.
That was well said, Cheryl. Okay, thanks so much.
Take care.
We were coming back with news and weather. No Mackie today, though, right? No. So just news.